Good evening and welcome everyone to our regular city council meeting for Monday, June 23rd. It being 5:30, I would like to call this meeting to order. First of all, please all rise, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please. Are you going to be sitting in there? Okay. Mr. Vasselli, excuse me.
Of course. Thank you. Mayor Burris,
Here?
Councilmember Abel,
Here.
Councilmember Nutter,
Here.
Councilmember Hoheimer,
Here.
Councilmember Fletcher,
Here.
Councilmember Hilst,
Here.
Councilmember Phillips.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Having a quorum, we will conduct business. Chair would now entertain a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fletcher and second by Ms. Hoheimer. Any questions, concerns of the approval of the agenda? Seeing none, council, take your vote, please. I believe.
There we go.
Is everyone able to vote?
Mayor, I'm
Do you want me to do it?
just to throw out there, we are training somebody just for backup purposes, so.
Okay, thank you. So please
a
be
little
patient with
patience
us.
her.
You want me to call it?
You want
I
to call
can.
roll?
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about the delay.
That's all right.
On the motion by Fletcher and the second by Hoheimer, we have a motion to approve the agenda. Councilmember Phillips.
Aye.
Councilmember Abel.
Aye.
Councilmember Nutter.
Aye.
Councilmember Hoheimer.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Hilst.
Aye.
And Mayor Burris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Chair would now entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes, please.
Madam Mayor, I move that the City Council regular meeting minutes of June 9th, 2025 be approved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fletcher and second by Mr. Abel. Any questions, comments, or concerns of the approval of the minutes? Seeing none, do you want to, let's do a roll call again until we get notification from there.
Sure. On the
Wait,
motion to.
It's working. It's
Okay.
working.
Looks like it's working.
Yes. Council, take your vote, please. Did yours come up? All right, that quick. Motion passes 7-0. We have now come down to public input. Anyone wishing to have their voice heard, please come to the podium. Make sure the mic is on, state your name, and just a reminder, you have 5 minutes. It is your 5 minutes. We don't answer questions, but our city manager is taking notes if we need to get back with any of you. So anyone from public wishing to have their voice be heard? Welcome.
My name is Troy Carter. I live at On. Is it on now?
It is. There we go.
Thank you. My name is Troy Tarter. I live at 6 Ruling Court here in Pekin. and tonight I represent Pekin Pride Soccer Club and our 6th annual Tony Folk Memorial Classic and a recent recipient of a tourism sponsorship. I am the tournament director for Pekin Pride Soccer Club, and I, along with several others tonight, are in attendance here this evening to express our sincere thank you to both the Tourism Committee and the City Council for your recent approval to sponsor our annual travel soccer tournament. Because of your sponsorship, we were able to utilize those funds to market our tournament, purchase awards, and most importantly, have athletic trainers on site all weekend for the safety of all participants. Additionally, banners were displayed at our tournament with the Discover Pekin logo, and our sponsor t-shirt, which I'm wearing tonight, also displayed a Discover Pekin logo as a top sponsor, and these t-shirts continue to be worn by many even after the tournament. A few details that I'd like to share with the council this evening. Our tournament brought in an estimated 3,500 visitors to Pekin over the Memorial Day weekend. We welcomed 100 teams from 27 different clubs. Both of those numbers are record numbers in just our 6th year, and hosted 170 soccer games from Friday evening through Sunday afternoon. Each year, we have grown our tournament at a nice pace, welcoming 46 teams in year 1, 91 teams in year 5, and 100 teams this year in year 6. Our tournament continues to generate economic impact to the city of Pekin each year through hotel stays, which Holiday Inn Express and the Hampton Inn here in Pekin were sold out during our tournament weekend, restaurant visits, gas purchases, and more. I also want to take a few minutes to share a concern that I have with the council for future tournaments. This year, our nonprofit organization absorbed an increase of 600% from year 5 to year 6 for rental of our own Pekin Park District Sports Complex. The cost of field rental was the second highest tournament expense, only behind referee fees, which you would expect for a soccer tournament. In addition to the rental expense, and the park collected all proceeds from the vendors who were on site during our weekend at Cook Street. I anticipate that profit was likely close to $2,000 for a total of over $8,000 collected by our own park district to host our event. That amount of money is unaffordable for a nonprofit such as ours, as the money could go a long way to help us continue growing the sport and developing the Pekin youth already in our program. Keep in mind, this is the single largest fundraiser of our club each year, and offers our board the opportunity to offer scholarships to young boys and girls in need, help us purchase equipment, offer training to our players, and help them improve in the sport. I also want to mention that had it not been for a budget-friendly partnership with the Village of North Pekin to use the newly opened Sandrock Sports Park, we would have had to pay an additional $2,000 to the park, bringing the total rental fee of just over $8,000 plus vendor profit. I am not aware of many nonprofit organizations that can absorb that type of expense and still be able to accomplish their mission of developing youth in their sport. If we continue to face steep rental fees in the future, I may have to ask the tourism and this city council to consider a larger sponsorship in 2026 to help us offset the higher cost of our own community park fields. In the meantime, I have shared these same concerns with the Pekin Park Board, but felt that it was important that this city council understand what our nonprofit youth organizations face today to keep the economic impact here in Pekin. Additionally, we will now have to pay for weekly practice fields, which may cause our season fees to increase. I'm told that other travel sport organizations here in Pekin may be facing similar situations with higher fees for space and facilities, and like Pekin Pride, may be considering alternative options. With the higher cost of space and fields to practice and host our tournament in the future, we will have to identify ways to offset those costs or look for more budget-friendly facilities such as the North Pekin site to utilize to keep the economic impact here in Pekin. Again, on behalf of the families, players, coaches, our board, and tournament committee, I want to reiterate our sincere gratitude to Mayor Burris, each of our city council members, and the tourism committee for your generous support of Pekin Pride Soccer Club. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do want to say that I knew Mr. Folk, and he was a wonderful gentleman.
Thank you.
Anyone else from council? or excuse me, from public.
Just made it, didn't I?
You did.
My name's Elaine Ritchie. I want to talk about the solar.
Okay.
I've had solar for 2 years. Best thing I ever done. My Silco bills was $400 to $600 a month. I get no glare. I get no problems with the neighbors. Matter of fact, a lot of my neighbors even are wanting solar and have got it. I think it's our choice as a taxpayer, as a homeowner, of wanting what we want that makes our budget fit. And this does make my budget fit. My Silco bill for this month is $58. Far cry from $600. I can afford that. You know, solar is a very good thing to have. It might not look the prettiest on your roof or whatever, but I'm so thankful that I do have it. I really am, and I would encourage anybody to get it. Also, about the bus department, that is one real sad part of my heart. That's where I started in 1978 as a school bus driver. Hauled many children, got to know a lot of parents. I loved it. One of the best jobs I ever had in my entire life was being a school bus driver. I hate to see it go down, but I had 2 wonderful bosses that kept that place going. One of them was Louise Fabry, that I have to give a lot of credit for. Matter of fact, she was one of them that you didn't call in sick. There was no such thing as being sick. You had to give notification if you died. I mean, that was Louise. I loved Louise. But we was under a contract, and we was mandated for that contract. And so we knew that was our job. That's what we was contracted for. Greg Rainey was an exceptional person. He kept that place together. When Greg Rainey left, that's when they sold the buses and went under bids for the buses. That's when everything, pardon my language, went to hell. Because the bus department bought a lot of buildings. It funded this city. It made this city with what it was when the city owned its own buses. And when they had to rent or lease the buses, that's when it went bad. And between Louise Fabry and Greg Rennie, they kept that bus department going, and they kept it going well. After that, we didn't have good supervisors up there. We had none of them. And I will say that. My sister worked there for 43 years. And there was a lot of bad eggs up there. And they didn't care. See, but we did, because we cared about our city and we cared about our job. Our job meant a lot to us because we knew that we was responsible for all them children. And them parents looked at us, they let their children ride with us because they trusted us. One thing about the city that I did really like is we had drug and alcohol random test. None of us was ever felt it because we knew. Our job depended on it. And I'm going to tell you something. When you've got good management like them two was,
30 seconds.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. They was awesome people. And I hate to see it go down, but I understand why now. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll shut.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. We have now come down to item 6, which is the consent agenda. Chair would entertain a motion, please.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that the consent agenda be approved as presented, which consists of the following 10 items. 6.1, financial reports through May of 2025. 6.2, account payable to be paid proof list through June 13, 2025. 6.3, Pekin Police Department monthly statistics for May of 2025. 6.4, resolution number 308-25/26, approving the appointment of Melanie Matthews as chairperson of the Tourism Committee. 6.5, ordinance number 4312-25/26, amending City Code, Chapter 5, Article 10, Division 2, Subdivision 1, Section 510214A regarding vehicle seizure and impoundment. 6.6, ordinance number 4313-25/26, approving a site plan for Excalibur Seasoning Company for the construction of an industrial research building on the vacant property abutting 1800 Riverway Drive. 6.7, ordinance number 4314-25/26, approving a site plan for Gale Credit Union to allow for the construction of a drive-up bank teller at 2990 Court Street. 6.8, ordinance number 4315-25/26, approving a special use for Tazewell Lutheran School Association for the installation and operation of a ground-mounted community solar garden at 3219 Court Street. 6.9, ordinance number 4316-25/26, approving a special use for Karen Walker for the operation of a beauty salon at 1022 Washington Street. And 6.10, ordinance number 4317-25/26, approving the right-of-way vacation of the alley running northwesterly and southeasterly between 5th Street and North 8th Street.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hilston, second by Mr. Nutter. Any questions, comments, concerns of the consent agenda? Seeing none, council, take your vote, please. Motion passes 7-0. We have now come down to item 7, which is our new business division. Chair would entertain a motion for 7.1, please.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that ordinance number 4318-25/26, ending the 6-month moratorium on residential ground-mounted solar array permits, be approved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hilst and second by Mr. Abel. Mr. Dossi.
Thank you, Mayor. On April 14th, 2025, the City Council placed a 6-month moratorium on the issuance of all residential ground-mounted solar array permits with ordinance number 4292-24/25 to allow time for the Zoning Board of Appeals to review the code and make recommendations to the City Council for any changes. Multiple discussions were held at the Zoning Board of Appeals meetings and at the City Council meetings regarding this subject. On June 11th, 2025, the Zoning Board of Appeals held its last discussion regarding the Solar Energy Code and provided staff with direction to inform the City Council that the board has no recommendations on changes and that they believe the code is well-written in its current form and that, for the most part, a ground-mounted solar array could not exist on most parcels within the city. This ordinance will end the moratorium on the issuance of permits for residential ground-mounted solar arrays. And Nick McQuett can answer any further questions council might have.
Council, do we have any questions or concerns or?
I
have no problem with the moratorium being released, whatever, ending it. But what I would like to see is, I would like it to come, any residential solar gardens that's not on your roof, that is next to your house or in your backyard, I would like to see that come before the council, like commercial does. So I'd like to make a, can I make a,
So, Madam Chair, if I may?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilmember, that's an excellent question. The changing of a line item on the agenda like that may not pass muster under the Open Meetings Act. But what we could do is, the city council can initiate, or I believe any single member, I'd have to look that up, can initiate a request to go through the zoning process and have that changed to the code. What you're asking for is each one of these to be a special use if it's not on the roof, is that correct?
correct,
I don't want to misinterpret anything.
right.
So tonight's line item, under a reading of the Open Meetings Act, is just to lift the moratorium, essentially. But that does not mean or does not allow for an initiated action, and I can confirm with Nick, sorry, to change it further to allow for a special use permit for people to come in on that issue. It would be a little bit of a broad stretch under the Open Meetings Act, but you could still go forward in a different means, or a different end, or different means to get to those ends, if that makes sense.
So could we conceivably keep the moratorium until we can have new verbiage put in an ordinance?
You could keep the moratorium until the whole point of the, yes, and I'm going to get to the reasoning why. The whole point of the moratorium is to allow additional studies or times to learn more about this issue, and because it's kind of a fluid process, it shouldn't be changed during this fluid process. So yes, you could keep the moratorium for a month, a week, a day, or a year, right?
Okay.
And allow for this further study on these residential, what we refer to as solar gardens.
Yes.
You could do that, but to make a zoning change that has not been reviewed by the Plan and Zoning Commission, or the Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals, would run afoul of zoning law. I don't want to be, I try to get us to a yes, I try to get us to solutions, but I really do want to explain this matter as well as I can.
Right.
So is the zoning board of appeal just not, aren't they a board that just brings recommendations to us? It's not set in stone?
100%, Your Honor. This board is the ultimate authority of a zoning board of appeals or plan commission. And that is set forth both in state law, the Illinois Municipal Code, and the Pekin City Code. So that is something that we can, generally, that's how it goes, that they're only recommending, and then with either a supermajority vote or a simple majority vote, depending on the exact verbiage of the Pekin City Code with regards to this issue, it is the recommendation of that commission can either be adopted or rejected. So, sorry, that's a yes, I apologize, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Mr. Fletcher, did you want to say something?
The only thing I would say, so basically, we need to act on lifting it,
Either
and
lift it or
then there
not.
could be a motion and a second to add these other stipulations to be looked at in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would work. That would, I think, accomplish what Councilmember Hoheimer is working on. That would also allow for compliance with the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, so if we want some kind of language changes, we would reject lifting this moratorium tonight, correct?
If you wanted to allow the moratorium to sit while we work on those recommended changes, then yes, we would reject the lifting of the moratorium. We would allow the moratorium to stand for enough of a period for us to take this through the Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals process. Can I confirm with my colleague?
Please do.
Do you agree with that? That's correct.
Yeah, that is correct. And as of right now, if that's what council would desire, it wouldn't be until August that they would hear that.
Okay. Well, can I just say a few words? Are you two both good with that? All right. My only thing is, I want people to know that I am not against solar totally. I really am not. I just don't know that we have all the answers that we're looking for on these gardens. I don't know how many the city of Pekin has now, 2?
I believe it's right around three total.
Okay.
We have had the discussion at the zoning board level of making it a special use, and they did not feel that it was warranted to be a special use because their setbacks are so restrictive as they are right now that not many lots would be allowed to have it.
Okay. Oh, excuse me. Ms. Phillips?
Granted, I haven't been a part of these discussions as long as you all have, but my gut instinct on this is that we've asked the zoning board, what is the situation, what are the risks? And they've told us on at least one occasion that they think it's fine the way it is. And I don't think that we should be micromanaging every garden that wants to go in. If the zoning board feels that what we have is sufficient, I would vote to lift the moratorium.
Anyone else? Hearing none, council, take your vote, please. Motion passes 5-2. Chair will entertain a motion now for 7.2, please.
Madam Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4319-25/26, amending City Code, Chapter 3, Article 2, Division 4, Sewer User Charges regarding winter averaging and administrative provisions be adopted.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Hoheimer and second by Ms. Phillips. Mr. Dossi?
Thank you, Mayor. Council recently discussed the application of winter averaging to the wastewater billing ordinance, specifically sections 3-2-4-2. Following that discussion, council directed staff to bring back recommendations to the ordinance that addresses winter averaging. Some staff recommendations are: 1, to amend section 3-2-4-2, section B3, implement a default winter average from 2,500 gallons to 3,750 gallons, and this would be for everybody. Number 2 would be adjust summer billing period, revise the summer billing period to cover 5 months, June through October reads. 3 would be adjust rounding method to only rounding up to the next 750-gallon increment, thus avoiding circumstances where customers pay less than average actual usage. And 4, clarify general provisions, update sections 3-2-4-3A2 and section B to better reflect current practices. An alternative option for council consideration to winter averaging, the council could consider requiring homeowners to install a separate irrigation meter. This would isolate outdoor water use, allowing the city to bill only for indoor wastewater usage. Installation and cost of the secondary meter would be the responsibility of the homeowner, and water used for irrigation would be billed separately by the water provider. Since the current winter averaging methodology is already in effect for 2025, it is recommended that any proposed changes take effect on November 1st, 2025 to allow for proper calculations and transition. We do have staff here to answer some questions. I think they want to review the PowerPoint, and I think it's updated a little bit on this. And so just make sure we have informed council of all the information necessary to move forward.
Council have any questions for staff or concerns themselves? Yes, Mr. Fletcher.
Okay, so I spent a considerable amount of time looking at this, and I did a lot of research, and there's only 4 cities in the entire state of Illinois that I could find that does winter averaging. Edwardsville, Batavia are 2. I can't remember what the other one is. Both of them, from the information I could find, allow winter averaging only June, July, August, and September. So they take the other 8 months as the baseline, whatever you would say with that. So that's a thought. Secondly, I probably received 8 to 10 personal emails from public. 6 or 7 of them actually said, get rid of it. And I tried to explain to them that it might be more costly for them if they did. They all understood that they would have to install their own meter and pursue that at their cost. So that brings me to Nick. Could you give me some kind of just a ballpark? Do you have any ballpark what a meter would cost a homeowner? Just a ballpark.
So the meter itself could, depends on the type, couple $100.
Okay.
$400 plus an install cost.
Right?
Then each house, it depends on where you put it and how that house is piped. So how are you metering it? Are you metering it right at a Silcock? Or are you trying to meter every Silcock with 1 meter?
Okay. All I'm getting at is that's probably a question that a lot of the public would like answered. And I think some of these things we jump into without getting feedback from the majority of the 17,000 households, and they expect us to make a quick decision. I started looking at this on Friday, spent a lot of time over the weekend. I still don't have a good recommendation, to be totally honest with you.
And I think, Councilman Fletcher, I think we're going to be providing you some information on that. And on the flip side, and if I'm wrong, staff correct me, the meter install is one thing. Then the question becomes the meter reads, and is that going to have a staffing impact on the city and cost more? So
Right.
those are a lot of the things that we had consideration on. So Mayor, I think we jumped the gun. It might be beneficial for council to let Bob go ahead and do
Oh, instead of
this
council
information
questions?
here, because
Okay.
it might answer a lot of questions ahead of time.
Okay.
If that's,
Okay.
if that's.
Yeah,
okay.
I just, the thing I'm getting at is it's a big issue and a big topic for everybody in this city. And I don't understand why we can't ask the public or get some kind of input from the public what they want. Because we're not all going to agree on this, and as soon as it passes, all of us are going to get emails of this is what should have been done, in my opinion, instead of letting them tell us first and then making an educated decision. That's all I have to say, and I think I'd like for everybody to take that into account. Thank
And
you.
I appreciate that. We will listen to this, but I've said it before, and, we're setting up here to make tough decisions. And if we listen to everyone's concerns, we'd be here all night long, all night long. I think if we hear the majority of voices, that's about what we've, a wise choice, the majority of voices. But let's hear Mr. Grogan.
Sure. So the first couple slides, and I gave copies to council, the first couple slides are rehashing some things that we've discussed before, but I just thought they're good to sort of give you back in reference. Really basic, the way it is currently right now is that we take the winter 6 months, we take that average, and then that is a cap to owner-occupied billings for the summer 6 months. There is no one in the owner-occupied homes that pays more because of winter averaging. Just, that's the way the math works. Now, you can say that because we are giving a decent deal or some sort of deal to owner-occupied, that means that overall rates are higher because, maybe, other people are subsidizing them, something like that. That's always open to discussion. But right now, there is no owner-occupied that pays more because of winter averaging. The only way it is, it's you pay the lesser of, that's the way the ordinance reads, the lesser of the average or their actual usage. There is a default rate of 2,500 gallons that is used on folks that either are snowbirds, so like they have like zero usage for some of those winter months, therefore it's not fair to bring that in, the math in, or they are new residents and we don't have a full winter to go through. And the way that math ends up working is it gets rounded to the nearest 750 gallons. We pointed out before, the 2,500 is not a great number from a math standpoint, but we do work with it. There has been, I think, concerns in the past that the implementation of this is an administrative burden. As Manager Dawsey brought up, the flip side of having deduct meters or having other meters that we have to monitor and do things with also could be an administrative burden. Talking it over with Melanie a couple times today, while it does take some time, every billing cycle takes some time for her, it is not something that is 100 hours a month, anything like that. She's getting it done within the work time frame that the work, the time she's scheduled. It is not overly burdensome by any stretch from staff standpoint. So this slide is updated at minimum, is somewhat new. This is to sort of show where if we had no winter averaging, again, it only happens for owner occupied, which is in our parlance, we have multiple cycles, sort of the way we group our billings together. Cycle 1 and cycle 2 are owner occupieds. And so here we were for last year's winter, all 6 months that came in, using the prior winter, what the last summer, so this is these are not the current months, these are the prior months, what they would have been for no winter average versus what we did end up paying. And you can see across the board, that ends up coming out to around $776,000 that if we eliminated winter averaging, we would have charged these customers. But note, we don't think that revenue would be for services that we provided, because we provide sewer services, and we don't believe that a vast majority of the increased bills during the summer are going into our sewers. So, analogy is, if I'm charging somebody for gas that I didn't put in their gas tank, that's kind of not normally done in the marketplace. This next slide here also I think is useful, particularly if we're talking about thresholds, if we're talking about changing thresholds. This is kind of how the distribution works as far as the number of customers that we have to each of those, the way they get averaged, rounded to. So little correction, it's about 9,200 owner-occupieds is what our numbers are at this time. It does vary a little bit, but not too much. As you can see, currently our 2,500 threshold is actually below the 50th percentile. There's actually more people above that than are below. This is another repeated slide. However, I did add a fifth example, and I want to just talk about that fifth example. One of the reforms that is proposal in front of you addresses this fifth example. So if someone were to, every month, like clockwork, they do so much laundry, they do so many showers and so many flushes, and they're using 4,000 gallons a month, right? Like clockwork. They don't do anything outside. There's no variance at all for the summer months. for the winter averaging, the way the formula works is 4,000, the nearest increment that's 750, rounds down to 3,750. So that means that person who has no outside watering, they are actually getting a discount. We are not charging them for services that we are delivering. And that's an anomaly that, again, it's hard to pick these things out, but that is an anomaly that, can justifiably be said that somebody's getting a little bit too much benefit from this. So I just want to make sure that that's another scenario and there's so many scenarios to deal with. Now, this next slide, this one is, partially developed in relation to a request from Councilman Hilst. Asked some really good questions about, what is our total volume and our total revenue, both in what goes into the plant as well as what we're billing for. And so I want to walk you through this one with a little bit more detail. So the top row there, that is how much revenue we get for our 6 different categories. We have owner-occupied, which is the only thing that winter averaging applies to. Then we have the non-owner-occupied residential, so rentals. As you can see that they are, so the owner-occupied is about 45% of our revenue there for on the volumetric. 20% of our revenue is the rentals. 22% is commercial. And then our prison, our nice federal customers, are 9% of that. I did also, because we want to have a complete picture, I also then did drop in leachate numbers, because that's obviously being treated by the plant, as well as North Pekin. And I worked a lot with Simon today, and as well as Chris Schaefer, to try and make sure we're getting a complete picture. Then below that, you can see the actual gallons billed. Now, again, with the owner-occupied, that's what we're billing for. That isn't necessarily what's going down the sewer pipe, but that's what we're billing for. So roughly, the gallons we're billing for is 46% for owner-occupied, 20-odd% for rentals, 23% for commercial, and again, 9% for the prison. And then you can see the leachate, for instance, I think this is just a side note, because we definitely charge them a higher rate, they are, 3.5% of our revenue, but only 0.5% of our actual volume. North Pekin, as a reminder, and maybe it's an instructional thing for the newer members, North Pekin is a special case in that we, by court settlement or agreement, there was a lawsuit back in the day, we only get to charge them their proportionality of the plant, the cost of the plant, and they have also paid us already for all the CSO stuff. They wrote us a check some time ago, so they are not a part of new CSO costs. So it's a little bit different from our normal sewer customers. Then the next grouping down there is the gallons into the plant. So what that top group was what we bill, but we also obviously take in a lot of stormwater and as well as infiltration, and there's other things that are going into the plant that's not coming through people's sewers to treat. And so that's actually, if you take all that together, we figure about 42%, 43% is coming from non-paying avenues. Then, it lines up with the prior page, if we were to eliminate winter averaging, meaning we would take in more revenue, say 776,000 is our estimate on that, that would only affect, that would increase the cost, average cost, to an owner-occupied home of 21.5% to their sewer bill. That's what they would get. And so therefore, the owner-occupieds would end up having a higher proportion of the burden there. It's a policy choice that council can make. If then, for instance, council were to come back and say, well, we aren't playing with this formula to make more revenue, we're doing it from a fairness standpoint, from an equity standpoint, for lots of different things, complexity standpoint. If we were then to, say, reduce the rates to get rid of the increase in revenue that we just realized, that's what this fourth little tranche of analysis is. And what's interesting here is If we were to do that, if we were revenue neutral, we eliminate winter averaging and then reduced rates the equivalent amount, because winter averaging only benefits owner-occupied, you would see a net average bill change of up 11.5% on owner-occupied. You would see a 10% decline for rental units, 10% decline for commercial, and a 10% decline in what we get from the prison. And because they're not part of those formulas, Leachate's a contract, North Pekin's a contract, it wouldn't affect what they pay in. If we were to, and then and we'll get into a little bit the recommendations, but if the council were to adopt the recommendations in front of you today, which is a sort of a scaled back, there's a couple things, I'll get into it in detail. Again, we're messing with winter averaging. It would increase the costs to the average homeowner about 7.5%. Overall revenue would be up 3.5%-ish. So that page, and I'm sorry for all the detail and the numbers and such, but I thought that really would tell a story that maybe at least is lost on some of the Facebook posters as to how that works. So if we go on to the next page, so just to recap, the issues that are in front of us with winter averaging. So the city provides sewer services, got that. The city bills through water billing. So we don't bill for actually what goes into our sewers. We, as a proxy to we don't know what goes into our sewers, we take an assumption that it's water sold, but we know that that's an inaccurate, it has some flaws in it. Water billings go up in summer months. Much of the extra summer volume doesn't go into our sewers. We know that for a fact. Winter averaging was the city's way, and as Councilman Fletcher pointed out, it is not by any stretch a universal way throughout the state, but it is something that's not unheard of in other places. But that is the approach the city has taken. We do have some where, because of the rounding, that was that fifth example I gave you, where they're actually paying less, even though they're not doing any outside watering. So that is an issue. Our default rate is perhaps a bit low because more than 50% of the people are above that default rate. Right now, the actual cap, the lowest people can go is actually 750, which is very low if you look at those numbers, because we can have people who their average ends up rounding to 750. And then, which months should we come in is definitely just a judgment call. That's definitely open to a lot of interpretation as to which months, if you're going to continue with winter averaging. So, summary of what we drafted in front of you. It was sort of a mix of things. There are four issues that we addressed in the thing in front of you. We have eliminate May as a month that would be affected by winter averaging. So that's 1 month there. Change the default rate for new owners and snowbirds to the $37.50, which is a higher. It would at least be above the average usage as opposed to the $2,500. Raise the lowest winter averaging rate from the $7.50 that it is currently to a $37.50. Again, that's open to an amendment on the floor. You can pick another thing. If you do amend on the floor, the staff does ask, make it divisible by 750, just to make our math easier, because that's the way our computer works. And then the last one is, because of that exception where people were rounding down, they're actually paying less than their actual usage. We also put in the ordinance amendment to only round up. And again, that doesn't penalize many people because you always get the lower of your average or your actual usage. So just because we round it up, if you don't use it, we're not charging you for it. And staff is neutral on all these reforms. Staff is not asking for these reforms. We were asked by council to come back and see what were the most reasonable ones, but staff is not asking for these reforms. We are not looking to this as a way to increase revenue, to diminish administrative burden at this time. We're not asking for this. Then the last page, and this the manager touched on a few of these things. I think maybe some of the other members have talked about it too. A few of the other reforms that we did not put in here. One is eliminate winter averaging overall. And I think we talked about the things that can come out of that. We also have, it was brought up at one point, having an opt-in, opt-out model. And since no one loses money on winter averaging, the administrative burden would definitely be quite high for no actual gain to someone. This is, and it's easy to confuse this with the Ameren, the electrical aggregation, where you can get a bad deal with electrical aggregation. You can't get a bad deal with winter averaging as it's currently structured. And so these reforms were not in this ordinance, and those two reforms, staff would be opposed to those reforms coming through. But again, just because staff's opposed doesn't mean council doesn't do what they wish. You guys are our bosses, and you get to go there. But the people who are doing the work every day, and this is a lot of consultation with Melanie, Simon, Eric, the village manager, the attorney weighed in. This is what we looked at, the entire ecosystem of how we were doing things. That's not to say that there aren't still things that we want to do with billing. North Pekin is not falling off our agenda. There are some other, smaller anomalies and things that we are definitely looking at, but when it comes to this area, this is what we put in front of you. So hopefully that was somewhat cogent, and sorry if it went on too long.
No, so Mr. Fletcher, we kind of cut you off. Do you want to be first to say anything more, or you're good?
No, I'd
or-
like just to hear what everybody else's ideas. I kind of gave my ideas about the 8 months and go from there.
Any other council?
Yes.
Oh, Ms. Hohenheimer.
I would like to have the May taken out of the winter averaging, but otherwise leave it alone.
And why do you want that taken out? I'm just asking. I don't.
Just because, I don't know, it's just a personal preference. I don't see a reason to have May put in there.
Okay. Mr. Abel?
The few comments I got, they were either, why are you changing it all of a sudden?
Right.
Leave it alone. And so I'd soon leave it alone, and if you go the other way, you're going to be costing every citizen more money.
That
We're not out
part
here to
is
do
true.
that.
Yeah.
We're up here saying we're trying to save the citizen money, so let's leave it the way it is and let it go.
I would agree with John.
Any other council? Ms. Phillips?
One of the things that Councilmember Fletcher said before was there hasn't been public input. And I know that I haven't always paid a lot of attention, but I do remember the public talking about this.
They did.
When this was adopted, 2003? There was a whole lot of da-da-da-da-da. And a lot of it was people just really resented paying extra for their pools and lawns. And that's how we got into this. I personally like the suggestions that have been made by the staff. I'm looking at the ordinance right now. It says that we'll round up to the next 750. I think that's a good change.
I do too.
A default average of no less than 3750, which is divisible by 750. That to me makes perfect sense. And the current proposal is to use the lesser of the average or actual June through October. So the proposal that we have to make changes is to change that time period. Right. So I wouldn't say we want to leave it as it is. I want to say we want to adopt the changes.
Yes. Mr. Dabrowski?
I got the wrong color. I do want to make one comment, is that any changes that are adopted to this would take effect next year.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for making that clarification. Any other council?
I'm not sure if people could hear Mr. Dabrowski.
So if these changes are adopted, they will not take effect until next year.
And just to be clear, November 1st, but in reality, it won't impact because of the months June through October.
Right.
If it goes in effect November 1st, it won't really hit till next year.
Yes.
26.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Mr. Hilst.
Okay, thank you. So First of all, when we take these averages in the wintertime, if people aren't using water and they're down in Florida, or they pull their meter or whatever they do, are they getting an average of 0 on those months?
No, they're getting the default rate of the 2,500
Okay,
per the ordinance. Now, I will speak for Melanie. She has to sort of watch that, right? So, you know, the zeros are probably easier to pick out, that like, okay, this person's got zeros. If they have minimal usage, you know, that like, you know, hey, they left on the 5th of the month and, you know, and then came back on the 25th of a following month. They were functionally not there for most of 2 months, but they're going to they'll be north of 0. She still tries to pick those out, but it's more art than exact science.
okay, and we just had a little bit of some information and comment made about no bad choices for people on this winter averaging, because you're either going to pay what your actual usage was or less. And that's one area where I'm struggling with, because I'm trying to understand why we think it's okay that people don't have to pay for their actual usage according to what our code states. And the people that are paying a little extra in the summertime for watering their grass or their pool, those are the ones that we want to make sure that we're catering to. But everybody else, hey, this is great for you because you may pay less than what you're actually using. And yeah, if you get rid of it, there may be a handful of people out there that, for whatever reason, are paying less, but then the city's going to start recouping all that money that we're losing. You know, we're supposed to sit up here and make decisions on what's best for the city, and I'm just struggling when I, in my mind, believe that we can generate quite a bit of extra money into this fund by doing something, and for whatever reason, it doesn't appear everybody thinks that way. But so another comment that was stated, you said we don't feel that they would be being provided that service. So you're talking about, so they use a little extra water in the summertime, and then they get billed on that volumetric rate for that, and you don't feel that's right because that particular amount of water, whatever it was, actually didn't go down and get treated at the wastewater treatment plant, so you don't feel that they were provided that service. Is that correct?
Correct. And I think that that's the original intent of why the ordinance was passed, right? I mean,
Okay.
if we were, for instance, if you were starting fresh and everybody actually had a meter set up where you knew what they were putting into our sewers, you would just charge them what they're putting into your sewers, and then this is all not a problem. But, because the goal would be to try and as equitably as you can, charge people for what they're putting in the sewers. It's actually a fee for service is really what I think the overall, you know, approach is. The problem is we're kind of having to judge something by measuring something else, right? It's like we're trying to measure the height by stepping on a weight scale to some extent. We're measuring something that isn't actually what the service we're providing, but it's the best proxy for understanding it. It's probably pretty close, unless you got somebody that's, you know, watering their lawns.
But we know we've got a lot of combined sewers around town, and there's a lot of water that goes down there that still doesn't get treated, and for whatever reasons. But, so what's the difference in that? Just, I'm gonna throw this out there real quick, but, so what's the difference in that and the fact that we get charged the same amount of money every month for our solid waste fee, which includes yard waste, but we don't get that yard waste service for 4 months or whatever in the wintertime, and there's no averaging on that?
The difference there, I mean, it's not.
I mean,
what
that's a
but-
service
yeah.
we're not
No,
being provided, but we're still paying for it in the
Right,
wintertime.
but ultimately, you're getting charged, I mean, I guess you could, it's 6 one, half dozen the other, in that you could just charge them twice as, you know, like more in the summer for that, and then less in the winter, but ultimately the revenue is the same because you're just trying to cover your costs. Now, I live in a community where I got to put a sticker on a paper bag for all, and I mean, and that is something that is a reform that's been discussed, charging people, because, you can have people who don't have yard waste. They pay, they have a lawn mowing person that comes and takes it away, and they're not putting anything out there. I mean, so you could, that would probably more accurately distribute the cost of what we do if you went down that, doing the stickers and the bags and that kind of world. And that's definitely, again, we could come back with some proposals going down that path.
Okay, so back on that volumetric fee that we pay on there. So, and, feel free to correct me or add on to what I'm saying or whatnot. I'm just going by what I've read and the way I understand it. So that fee is for the use of and the services provided by the wastewater treatment plant. That's what that fee's supposed to be for. So when you read that, that's not going to just include your water being treated down there. That's also going to include for all the operational costs for material that they have down there. You're paying for people's salaries down there and all their insurance. We bought trucks and street sweepers up here at the street department that we paid for out of this wastewater fund. So its fee is for a lot of things other than just your water being treated. So I don't see where if you're paying a little extra and that water is not going down there, that extra money is still going for the purpose of what that fee's for, which is a lot of other things.
Yeah, I'm not going to correct you because you were totally right on what you said. I would add, there's actually, other things that are also it's covering, for instance, the sewer lines for the storm sewers. I mean, so there's, even before it gets to the plant, right, it's covering these other costs. And I guess the thing about what winter averaging is doing is it's a question of who is paying and trying to equitably distribute who pays. So that's really what winter averaging is about. For instance, storm sewer costs, right? So as you can see, like 40-something% is treating, of the overall volume is stormwater that you guys are treating. Nobody is directly getting charged for that. I know like a lot of communities go through the whole rain tax conversation, impermeable surfaces, and they go down, trust me, it is a no-win thing. I'd never recommend that you guys go down that path. But you need to still cover those costs, and what you're doing is you're covering your stormwater costs through your overall volumetric rate. And so you are distributing that. And the question in front of you is, do you want to change the mix of who pays? Do you want owner-occupied to pay more than they are paying currently? Or do you want them to pay the same amount that they're paying currently? That's the question you have in front of you.
But some people may not be paying more if you got rid
Correct.
of it
So,
because
correct.
they average the same all year long.
No, you are
So it
correct.
wouldn't affect
Not
it.
everybody. So the quintessential little old lady who doesn't water or garden or do anything, she just lives her life. Will not affect her, right? But on average, 21% increase on bills. So that little old lady, she's zero. That means some people are going to see a 30, 40% increase on their sewer bills because in order to average it out. And again, that's just, and that's if we went to zero to no winter averaging. Not this reform, not these tweaks, but that was if you go to no winter averaging.
So do you still have questions?
I'll just wrap it up there.
Okay,
I'm good.
I have a
Thanks.
question. Have we made, when was this adopted in '03, '02, somewhere in there? Have we made any changes to this at all?
We didn't start billing for sewer until 2000, I believe it was 11 or 12.
Okay,
And at that time, winter averaging was adopted.
okay, okay.
I can't tell you when it was adopted in the ordinance, but that's when we began to bill and we allowed winter averaging.
Yeah.
I was curious about that too because I think we all got that information that was sent out. And I think the most recent one out of all that information as far as this whole winter averaging being approved by council and being codified stated that it was 8 months averaging. And I couldn't find anything where it ever got switched to 6, which is where it currently is.
Yeah, and we can, I did not do a deep dive on that. We, you know, if
I
it's the
just
council's
was
pleasure,
curious.
we can go back and research, you know, the history a little bit more, but we do know what we do now. And, because Melanie lives and breathes it, so we are familiar with that part.
Okay, so,
I have a comment.
sure. Mr. Nutter.
I waited. So, I was a proponent for total elimination, but thank you to staff and everything that was brought forward, like 3 minutes before the meeting started with all this information. So, in all fairness to all council, with everything you presented, that's a lot of information. There's some stuff in there I'm not 100% sure is accurate. That's why I want to look at it some more. But the question I have for staff, and unfortunately not all of you were here, why are the rental properties excluded? Okay, Melanie?
Melanie.
I have an opinion on that.
Well, hold on.
I can't say why council eliminated the rentals, but I believe the thought process may be, if you provide a winter average for your tenant, now tenants move in, they move out, they move in, they move out. You're providing a winter average for a new tenant, they did not, they were not there during those winter months.
Yep.
They might use a lot more water in that summer time when they've moved in. So they're enjoying the benefit of a winter average from a previous tenant. And how many rental properties water? Some might, most don't. And that may be part of the thought process that went into that. I can only offer that.
That is a good thought process.
I
I
would
agree
agree.
with that. The other thing is, in today's market, how many people are rental units that started out with 2 people in it, now they got 6 or 8 people in there.
Exactly.
And now they're using a lot more water.
That's correct.
Which we all have seen. I've experienced it through my family. So it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're a rental unit, and you started with 2, now you got 8. So the other question I have, and Melanie, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. How many deduct meters do we actually go through for the year? Like, are all the deduct meters like commercial, schools?
They are
Where-
commercial. The commercial, some commercial and park, and I believe there's about a dozen.
That have to call you, report the readings
Yes,
and everything?
and we manually provide them an adjustment.
Are schools
in their meter
included?
read. The high school is, but we haven't received any information from them for quite some time.
Well, that's interesting.
And we do
It
make
is-
them
it
send
is- it
pictures.
is their burden to convey that information. They have to read those meters, and they provide those to me via email and pictures.
Grade school, same way?
No, just the high school.
They haven't asked. We wouldn't, if they actually had a deduct meter, we wouldn't turn them down. It's available to any of our
Sure,
customers.
right. The
But-
meter's available. You just have to report
Right.
the information.
And to Councilman Fletcher's comment earlier about if residents installed a meter, that would require us to probably have some input on a type of meter per se, that we require it to have some type of wireless reading so that we can go through, and again, it gets into staffing issues and everything else. So what we're trying to do is provide you with as much information of the, if you go this direction, here's the things to consider. If you go this direction, here's things to take into consideration, and make that decision. But that would be one thing we would have to do, because it is, just for the few that do have these types of meters, they have to send us in the pictures, and, you know, the burden's on them to do this, and it gets time-consuming at times, because I know last year, I think Melanie, I don't know, I think it was the school district, if not the park district, where there was a few months that we had to go back and get the pictures and get all the data to make sure we had the correct billing, and it took some time. Because we don't have the ability, it's not a wireless, it's a manual process. They have to take the picture of the digital part of the meter and send us all that proof.
Well, with all the information, additional information that we've gotten at the last minute, I'm going to make a recommendation, and it's up for discussion, to postpone this till meeting in 8/25, August 25th, because there are some good suggestions on here from staff, but I think going through and looking at some of this stuff, more information.
There's no hurry.
No, because if we do pass it, it doesn't go into effect till November, December, or whatever. So I'm all for taking a look at the best thing for everybody. Man, I just hate losing money. That's the biggest thing, and we're always in the revenue crunch, so.
I'll second that motion.
That's perspective. Is it really a loss? Are they really using the sewer system?
Well, it all comes down on paper. I
That's
mean,
true.
that's the thing. Is there or isn't there? There's another side to that.
Right.
We could just eliminate it and find out for sure. Are
Well,
we
you
really
eliminate it,
losing money?
that your gain will be that 700-some thousand gallons. But again, are they using the sewer system or are they not? And I would venture to say that myself, as someone who waters their lawn, I'm not using the sewer system in the summer any more than I was in the winter.
Sure. No, there's a lot of it, like I said, the reason I'm asking for through August is the fact there's a lot more information than we had when we started and looking at it on Friday, so.
So if I understand this correctly, we're one of the 4 that's doing this in the entire state. Pekinite's pretty lucky. You don't get it, do you? In your place? They're not averaging yours, right, Mr. Grogan?
So I did run into some people, I was out east, and I ran into some people that live in a city up north, and they're just now getting it.
Yeah. I'm just saying this is a unique thing for Pekin. So,
And I don't know how many communities
But it's
don't allow
worked.
people to have their own wells,
Yeah.
if that's a common thing. Because, for instance, when I grew up, we had a well that we sprinkled our lawn with, and then we had city water for the house.
Right.
You know, but my understanding is from talking to Nick this morning, like, you don't allow people to actually have their own well water to do that kind of thing either. So I don't know how that balance works.
Right.
But honestly, if we put it off till October, to August, we can do some more research on that kind of stuff, like the other cities. We haven't looked at how their formulas work.
Right.
We can get more data.
that
and
would be
stuff on
great,
that.
I think.
So I have a motion on the floor to table it. I have a second, or by Mr. Nutter.
Postpone it.
Oh, excuse me, postpone. And I have a second by Mr. Hilst. Do we have any discussion on that? Because if not, council, take your vote on postponing it. Motion failed, 3-4. So let me see here. So the motion failed to postpone it,
Correct.
correct? So now we're going to back to the original.
Correct. We are back at the original motion, which is the changes as presented.
All right, so now we are back to the original, which are to vote on the changes that were presented to us this evening. Council, take your vote, please.
Which one are we voting on?
Yeah.
4 options on there.
They're all
They're all
in, they're,
together.
all 4 options are in the ordinance.
It was in
In the changes.
the changes as presented. I think that was the motion that was
I'm
made on
sorry, I
that.
went ahead.
So that wasn't 4 separate options, that was all one option, just separated.
Yeah.
Correct. I summarized, because there were 4 things that were happening, and I just wanted to,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I identified the 4 things that were in the ordinance.
We'll have to
change.
see, I voted, we'll have to see how things are, but Mr. Vasselli.
Sure, and just to make sure that there's no confusion, there's no clumsiness between the motions, or what we're voting on is, those 4 were subparts and all incorporated in what was presented.
Correct.
And the motion was made by Holheimer and then seconded on those changes that were all incorporated in there in one ordinance, which has 4 subsets
Yeah.
to it of the changes that Mr. Grogan took us through.
Yeah, yes. So, council, take your vote, but I've already...
Hold on a minute, hold on. In that ordinance, at the bottom, there's ordinance changes, there's redlining stuff that pertains to administrative fees and everything. I can't pull it up because it's got the vote thing up there. There's some in that.
So did I. So it's tilted.
I believe there, Melanie, was that the $25 for the shut-off? That was already in there.
It's not that. It says something about administrative fees of something.
It was
Yeah,
clarifying the
that's a
reference.
sign.
It was clarifying where it's referred to. It's already a fee that we're charging.
It's referring to liens as well.
Oh, and yeah, and the lien fees as well.
I believe I believe the vote was canceled, so Mr. Nutter, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Madam
the
Chair.
vote
may
was
I-
canceled?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of us already voted.
Correct, and I think that our clerk told me that she canceled the vote to start the process all over again.
All right.
So any council members such as Mr. Nutter wants to look at it, and I believe that he's referring to page 306 of 411 in our packet, which is I could be wrong, but it does discuss under subsection, or section 3-2-4-3B, it talks about administrative fees. If anyone can't pull it up, I have a copy of it in my hands of what I think he's referring to. I can approach with the chair's consent and show them.
So does
the
it
physical
have,
copy.
So it's under the section that says delinquent bills.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading.
And all this is language cleanup for the process that we are currly doing.
I think that's why I
And
asked
that's,
to
that, I
have
mean,
there
it's
been
not,
changes.
it's about the liens and about the shut off, and it's the process that we are doing currently. It's just a cleanup. It's not an additional, it's just a
no.
cleanup of the language of the
that I
process we're
understand,
currently
but
doing.
what's the dollar fee? Is it
It's
$25?
$25, which we are going to, right? 25, yeah,
Plus lien fees is a different.
on that. And then and that's something
Right,
that
the
we are
lien
going
fees are different
to,
altogether.
yeah, that is something, if council recalls, when we went through and did the fee schedules, this was not picked up because it was a different section we're looking at, so we caught that this time. So down the road, we said we're not going to muddy the waters with this. Down the road, we will add that into the fee schedule and adjust it accordingly down the road.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Okay, now can we vote again on the machine? All right.
Madam Mayor.
Yes. Hold on. Don't vote yet.
I wanted to be clear because there was the questions before. We have several changes proposed.
Correct.
Does anyone feel that any changes ought to be made to the changes that are proposed?
No, I'm good with them.
I'm good with them.
Okay, because it felt like there might be some.
A little, yeah.
Well,
Okay, thank
we
you.
might have had an answer to that if it would have been laid over until August, but since we don't have time to think about that or look through it, then
Okay, council, take your vote, please. Third time's the charm.
Let's see, where are we?
Motion passes 4-3. Chair would now entertain a motion for 7.3, please.
Madam Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4220/25/26, amending City Code, Chapter 5, Article 10, Division 6A, low-speed electric and gas-powered bicycles be approved.
Second?
Motion made by Ms. Hoheimer and second by Mr. Abel. Mr. Dossi.
Mayor, I'm going to ask that Chief Rainey discuss this.
Chief Ranny.
Good evening.
Good
The police
evening.
department has been enforcing the current ordinance, which is in the packet regarding low-speed gas bicycles for the past several years. The issues continue to grow. Citizen and business complaints include loud noise violations, not following required traffic laws, and disregard for other vehicle and pedestrian safety. Due to ongoing and continued complaints, I am bringing forward to amend the existing ordinance in Exhibit A, which would prohibit the operation and use of low-speed bicycles upon any street or highway, sidewalk, alley, or upon any path set aside for the use of bicycles in the city of Pekin. I've also, in the packet, put in what would be the direction that we would give officers on how to deal with it, starting with a warning and then escalating from there for continued use, including impoundment of the bicycles. So that is the language that's in there, just generality. This has been an ongoing issue for the past couple of years. We have worked diligently to try to address it through enforcement, and it just continues to be a problem. We're spending a significant amount of manpower and time with extra patrols in neighborhoods and businesses trying to get a handle on it. I understand the frustration of both homeowners. You know, we get a lot of the calls of they're going back and forth all night long, and then in businesses going through parking lots, nearly hitting customers and things like that. So obviously I take very seriously anytime we bring an ordinance to the council that prohibits a citizen from being able to do something. So it's not something that we take lightly, but I feel like, for lack of better terms, we've dodged a lot of bullets with these bikes, and I feel like at some point we're going to have a significant injury or death because of them, and just don't want that to happen. So that's why it's being brought forth tonight. I know I've had several conversations with council members over the last year about this, and I've also got countless citizen complaints, and like I said, we've been working with several businesses over the last 6 months, and they voiced extreme frustration. So we're just bringing it forward to get council to get your thoughts, and we believe as a police department this is what's best for the citizens.
Well, I personally want to say thank you. You have taken a few of my calls when businesses have called and complained and said, you got to help us. So thank you very much for putting the time into this. Council, anyone else have anything? Oh, Ms. Hoheimer?
When we first passed this ordinance, I was against it 100% because I knew that people wouldn't follow the law. And when I left the meeting, I was driving down 5th Street, North 5th, and lo and behold, there was a motorized bike on the sidewalk flying very quickly the wrong direction on the wrong side of the street. And I was like, I know there's going to be problems. I could read the writing on the wall, so, you know.
Kudos to finally making some changes.
Yep.
That's great. Great. Mr. Fletcher?
Yeah, I have quite a few questions here on this. So is the language that you cannot operate it on a road, or are you talking about nowhere in the city?
The language as it's written, it would be on any road, highway, sidewalk, alley, or essentially the language is bike path.
I totally understand it. I live down on the north side, dead-end streets. I hear them all night. That's personally, I don't like it either. But, so if you can't afford a vehicle and you're a law-abiding citizen and you need to get to work and you purchased one of these and you follow the letter of the law, you drive it on the road like a motorcycle, stop when you're supposed to stop, signal, you want to take that away from the citizen. I just need to make sure, because technically I could get support from 3 other council members at some time down the road, because I don't like the kids that ride the scooters, motorized scooters, everywhere. So I could get 4 votes and we're going to take scooters away. I have a very hard time with overreach, and I believe that there's ways of maybe the patrolman having more authority, or more, maybe concentrate an area at a time and get these guys off of them. I see them going up Court Street in the turn lanes, down Broadway in the turn lanes, on sidewalks. They should be immediately ticketed and dealt with. I agree. I just have a real hard time living somewhere that's free, that 7 of us can decide that you can't have that. That's my thought. Thank you.
Yeah, and your concern is extremely valid, and it is something that we take into account when we make ordinances like this. And it's the level of complaints that we're getting, and you are right, they're there would be people that follow the laws. My thought was we did not do anything with the e-bikes. Those are still in place. Bicycles are still in place. So your concern is very valid, and I will just tell you that is something that I take extremely seriously whenever we're making an ordinance, because restriction to our citizens is very important.
Councilman Fletcher, I think it's very important to kind of distinguish the difference between the e-bike, the electric bike, and the gas-powered bikes. What we have found is that the gas-powered bikes can be manipulated because the low speed is supposed to be under, 20 mile an hour or less.
Right.
Anything above that, you start getting into the state statutes on the CCs, and you start getting into the license plate requirements by the state of Illinois and everything else. And what you just described is exactly what I've described. I'm driving the speed limit 30, I'm being passed.
Yep.
That's true.
And I think it's important to clarify the distinguishing of the gas-powered. The e-bikes are still in existence because those, I can't say that it can't be manipulated, but the majority of the e-bikes that we've had experience with have not been manipulated, so they fall within the requirements of what the speed limit is and everything else. I think what we're trying to do is address a lot of the complaints, the noise for one of them, the tampering with it to modify it so that it goes faster and drives as fast
Right.
as a car. I will say my best guesstimate with almost 40 years in law enforcement, I've seen some that are probably going upwards of 40 mile an hour or faster,
Right.
blowing right through the intersection. And I'll share, one of them was coming down the hill at Sheridan, and I had stopped and I had the right of way, and he went to blow through the stop sign, and I had turned and he almost wiped out. So
Well, I understand the
yeah.
reasoning, and I'm not
I think
opposed.
we're trying to find that happy median, and I think we're trying to address the issues that are there that have been abused because people tinker with them.
Right.
With the motorized, the gas-powered ones, and we're just saying,
Well, I don't understand why we don't just instruct the police force to pull every one of them over, make sure they have the sticker for the city. If you need to educate them, educate them. And obviously, if you're pulling them over because they're doing something wrong, you give them a ticket.
right. And we have, and I believe we have a garage full of
Good.
those bikes that have been impounded, and we're to the point of what do we do with those?
Right.
Because they don't pick them up, and they just go get another one, and they put an engine on it and modify it. That's why I'm saying, we're kind of we've gone through the enforcement message, we have, or situation, we have a garage full of them that are sitting there, and, they just go out and they'll get another engine, they'll build another one bigger, better, faster.
Right. No, I understand. I totally understand
And we're just trying to find
that.
is how do we do something that the community is complaining about?
Right.
And I believe the e-bikes have come down in price significantly enough, and I think that that's the option, and I think they're quieter, so that resolves the noise issue. You're controlling the speed. It's going to be on the police department to do the enforcement of the traffic control, but they can't be everywhere
Right.
all the time. But, at least start addressing those, writing them tickets for disobeying a stop sign, because they apply to the rules of the road that you and I, driving our car, have to do.
I
So,
don't dispute anything that you said. I just do not like mandating what you can and can't do in Pekin, Illinois, that you could go to anywhere, any surrounding city, and you're allowed to do it.
But the e-bikes came out, but then somebody took a engine off a weed whacker, and made a bicycle out of it,
Yep.
and everybody bought those because it was a couple $100.
Sure.
And they were picking the bikes out of the garbage and throwing an engine on them, and that's where we get into it. They kind of evolve from there, but
I just want you to
guess
understand.
where's the happy medium?
I just want you to understand that it's very difficult for me to be one of the 7 people that say, hey, you've done everything that you're supposed to do, and unfortunately, we're going to take that away from you. Thank you.
Ms. Phillips?
So currently, any resident who has this kind of bike is supposed to have already registered it, correct?
Yes.
Do we know how many registrations we've issued?
They would have a list of that down the PD.
when we come across them, we make sure that they're registered. As far as the exact number, I don't know that off the top of my head. It's not, the compliance is not very high.
So, under 100,
Oh, well, under 100,
okay.
yes.
So, just in terms of the impact, I will say that when I was elected, the community name for them are the chainsaw bikes. And,
Dewey bikes.
well, they were saying, what are we
called
gonna do about the chainsaw bikes? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And this was one of the first things that people reached out to me because they're very concerned about the number of bikes in town. And I think if it were a resident problem, it wouldn't be this high a number because the residents would have the stickers. And so I do appreciate your point. I feel like this is something that the people of Pekin have asked us to do. And if someone who's currently a resident and has one, if they'd like to come and, express their feelings about that, well, we haven't voted yet, but I have one, what I assume is a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
There is not a stupid question.
A low-speed gas bicycle, under the definition, is a 2 or 3 wheeled device with a fully operable pedals and a gasoline motor of less than 1 horsepower, or blah, blah, blah. So I assume if it's more than 1 horsepower, it's not low speed anymore. It's now something else that falls under a whole bunch of different set of rules.
That's correct. That's also the definition that was set forth by the state of Illinois.
See, he had an answer for you.
There's, and I don't want to go into it too deep, but it's a myriad of things, like, because then you get into mopeds, they're highly regulated, but when it comes to the gas-powered low-speed bicycles, there's very little regulation.
I have a
Okay.
comment.
Mr. Nutter.
Yes. Thanks, Seth, for bringing that to us. So in May, there were 13 tickets written for the bicycle thing. Picked up, that automatically becomes their second offense?
No, the direction that I'm going to be given is if this were to pass and it takes effect after the required time when an ordinance takes effect, the 10 days, we will start the program from that day forward, because I believe that that's only fair, especially speaking to
absolutely.
what Councilmember Fletcher said. There are a handful of people that do it the right way, and obviously they should not be penalized. So that will be the direction if passed, and that will be, we want compliance like we do with all of our ordinances. That's our goal. Issuing fines and the impounds and things like that. So that's not our goal, but it's just one of those where, unfortunately, we've learned that you have to have something there, for lack of better, you got to have some teeth in the ordinance, or people will continue to abuse it, which would not allow us to address the issues of why I brought it forward. So it's one of those where if we don't have that in there, then, it's not as effective. But to answer your original question, no, my stance would be is we would be starting fresh.
Okay.
So everybody's on the same page and being treated fairly.
And the other question I had got answered. I'm going down, when I looked at it to begin with, why the 4th offense? Well, that got answered. Hey, I got my bike taken away on the 3rd offense. I went out and got another one.
Yeah, I just stopped there at 4th offense. My plan was to go up incrementally from there, just because I do really believe fully in there being an honest and transparent way to deal with someone.
Sure.
And so it's one of those, but I think on the 4th offense, it feels very intentional. You're clearly not adhering to the ordinance at that point in time, that, they're voluntarily committing an ordinance violation. And at that point,
Sure.
it has to, unfortunately, in my opinion, be financially disincentivized to continue to violate the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
I do have a follow-up question. You flip out your little, hey, I'm a grandpa, I can still ride my bike here as long as I obey the rules. Is that feasible?
Obviously, it's always your guys' decision. We just bring forth issues that are brought to us and unfortunately put you guys in the position to make a decision. But it's one of those where I would probably defer to the attorney on that one, only because I think it would be difficult to enforce that of not knowing if you're stopping someone that is, at what you're describing, they would be legal, and I don't know how an officer would know someone would be in a compliance status versus a non-compliant status.
Yes.
Thank
Mr.
you, Madam
Maselli.
Chair, council member. Well, a very excellent point, and one that takes a lot of ingenuity and creativity to come up with. The prohibition here is one for utility and not ownership, if you look at that. So it would be giving an exemption to something that's not necessarily being prohibited, if that makes sense. Like what, and I'm not trying to be clumsy or clunky with my words, but like you're getting a get out of jail free card for having illegal spray paint, essentially. Does that make sense? Is that a good analogy to take it through? So while a very good suggestion, I don't think it fits. I don't think it fits from there, but I guess, and I'm not trying to play ping pong here. I don't know if the chief agrees with me, if I may, manager and chair.
Yeah.
But, right, like we're trying to get a waiver for the use of something. When you get a waiver, it's because you had this possession of this interest or this property right from before regulation got imposed. Does that make sense? Like no one in here, unless I misread something, does it say you can't own them? You just can't use them. Is that?
That's accurate. I think it circles back to Councilmember Fletcher's concerns, which is the handful of law-abiding citizens, and it is extremely valid, and it was why it's actually taken this long for me to bring it to council, is because our hopes is to deal with it through enforcement, and so that is absolutely a valid concern, and it's unfortunately, I think it's like a lot of things at a local, state, and federal level that laws get implemented for, there's a lot of people that do it the right way, and then there's people that don't, and they ruin it for a lot of people that do it the right way.
That's with a lot of things.
And who's to say that if somebody doesn't get a sticker in grandpa's name and grandson's driving it because he lost his license 2 years ago? So that happens.
Anyone else? Well, I'm going to say it again. I appreciate you putting at least something forward for us. I've had numerous complaints, as we all have, I'm sure. So thank you. With no other questions, council, take your vote, please. Motion passes 5-2. Chair would now entertain a motion for 7.4, please.
Madam Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4321-25/26, approving and authorizing the execution of a Court Street TIF district redevelopment agreement by and between the City of Pekin and Margaret A. Herman Trust be approved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Nutter and second by Ms. Phillips. Mr. Dossi.
Thank you, Mayor. Margaret Herman, representing her living trust, recently closed on the property at 1915 Velde Drive and is seeking incentives under the residential development TIF policy. The project is a new home with a total investment of over $400,000, $45,000 of TIF eligible expenses. Under the existing residential incentive policy, the total incentive given from the TIF fund will be up to $45,000 in property tax increment rebates over a period not to exceed 10 years. The actual incentive given will be based on the eligible expenses incurred in the new property assessment after project completion. Staff is recommending approval of the ordinance.
Any questions from council? Seeing none, council, take your vote, please. Motion passes 6-1. Chair would now entertain a motion for 7.5, please.
Madam Mayor, I move resolution number 309-25/26, creating policy number, which will be assigned after, if it's approved, TIF/BDD incentive application deadline. Be approved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Nutter and second by Ms. Hoheimer. Mr. Dossi once again.
Thank you, Mayor. A fundamental principle of the TIF and BDD laws is that projects receiving incentives should only receive such incentives if, without the incentives, the projects would not move forward, often called the but-for principle. While the city has always been in legal compliance with state law regarding this matter, it is nearly impossible to know for fact if a project would or would not have moved forward without incentives. So council has expressed a desire to establish a policy that will help ensure this but-for principle by setting a deadline for when project incentive applications must be received. As written, the attached policy generally requires all TIF, BDD incentive applications to be received by the city prior to issuance of any building permit for the project. For projects not requiring a permit, expenses already incurred will not be eligible for incentives, and property acquisition cannot be considered for incentives after the closing. There is an exception for the new home incentive program. New home buyers often do not really understand the TIF program or know how it works, and they normally don't control when their builder obtains permits. Therefore, the policy states incentive applications for this specific program must be received before the later of the first closing on the property or the final certificate of occupancy is issued. This will also allow home builders to start spec homes with the ability to still market the TIF incentive to buyers. There is also an exception for special circumstances that may warrant the council's consideration, but approval of incentives after the normal deadlines described above would require a 3/4 vote of approval. And this is Josh's disclaimer, knowing that I'm presenting this tonight. Mr. Ray is out for vacation during this council meeting. He'll be present for the July 14th meeting if council would like to postpone this item until he can be present to answer the questions. Otherwise, staff is recommending approval of this resolution.
So before I turn it over to council, we had discussed this and asked for Mr. Ray to come up with some changes and discussions, and so this isn't totally new to us. If we remember, was it last time or a couple meetings ago? We asked for Mr. Ray to come up with this. Council have any questions or concerns? Council, take your vote, please. Motion passes 7-0. Chair would now entertain a motion for 7.6, please.
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt, Madam Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 310-2526, approving official notice to terminate intergovernmental agreements for bus transportation services with various school districts effective June 30, 2026.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Phillips and second by Ms. Hoheimer. Mr. Dossi?
Thank you, Mayor. In the summer of 2024, City Council directed staff to move forward with the dissolution of the city's school bus services. Currently, Pekin is the only municipality in Illinois providing this type of service to school districts. As school transportation is not a core municipal function, staff began discussions with school districts 108 and 303 in early 2024 to inform them that the city was considering non-renewal of the current contract, which expires in 2026. These discussions have continued, and both districts are actively working on transitioning to providing transportation independently or contracting with a third-party provider. The resolution before the council would formally notify the school districts, as required by the existing agreement, that the city will not renew the school bus service contract upon its expiration in 2026. And I will just add that we did sit down with South Pekin and all of the school districts that are in there. Some of them are smaller. 108, I believe, has some of that, and we've also been notified, I believe, I believe it was South Pekin that did send us the letter in writing. They've already started this past school year, or they're starting this next school year, doing their own bus as it is. So conversations are moving forward. They are working out their plans, and I believe we will have this completed at the end of the school year next year. This is a formality required by the agreement we have, that we give them the notice.
All right. Any questions from council? Mr. Abel?
Just a comment, South Pekin's already advertising on our new electronic billboards, $25 an hour, looking for school bus drivers, so they're getting ready.
Anyone? Mr. Nutter?
So how are we addressing SHRAM, TCRC, all the ancillary schools that
Some
have
of
that
that,
service?
some of that's part of, I can't remember if Schramm was there. I believe they were. There were several representatives from these different entities. TCRC, I've been having conversations with 303 based on the number of routes they have. I believe it's 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon that are transportation. It seems that because the 303 does have a overlap or interest in that with vocation and everything else, that might be something they would do. So that's all the little things that we're still working through with them.
So at least they're aware it's going
Right,
to happen. It's not going to
right.
be,
And
oh my
it's-
gosh, nobody picked my son or
Yeah.
daughter up. Okay.
Yeah, Saskia is a big part of that, and as well as her assistant.
Anyone else from council? Council, take your vote, please. Motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstain. Correct? Yeah. Chair would now entertain a motion for 7.7, please.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 311-2526, approving a credit purchase and sale agreement for a community solar subscription with Hudson Township Solar LLC.
Second?
Motion made by Ms. Phillips and second by Mr. Abel. Mr. Dossi once again.
Thank you, Mayor. Community Solar is a solar energy program facilitated by some states that allows energy customers to support the use of clean, renewable solar energy. Energy customers support the production of clean energy by subscribing to a portion of an off-site, large-scale solar farm based on the amount of electricity the customer consumes. In turn, customers receive solar credits on their utility bill. In Illinois, incentives are available through the state for these developments that they can pass on to subscribers to make the agreements more financially beneficial. Solar on Earth is a firm that specializes in connecting energy customers with solar developments that the customer can subscribe to in order to lower energy bills. The city, being a relatively large electricity user, was approached by Solar on Earth to participate in a solar development, in this case a development by Hudson Township Solar, a subsidiary of Nexamp. The core of the agreement is as follows. 1, the city subscribes to a portion of a solar farm based on historic electricity usage. 2, the off-site solar farm generates energy for the grid, and the city receives a bill credit based on our share of the solar farm. 3, the bill credit appears on the city's Ameren bill, lowering our electricity charges. And 4, the city pays the Nexamp 89% of the bill credits, ultimately saving 11%. There is no upfront cost for the city to subscribe. The term of the agreement is for 15 years. Staff has discussed this internally and with our energy broker, Good Energy. The only downside is that the city will be locked in for the 15-year term, and it is possible that a more beneficial program or better solar technology comes out in that time frame that could save the city more money. Staff believes this is a very low risk. Solar on Earth has worked with the communities of Morton, Princeville, Bartonville, Marion, and LaSalle, as well as several school districts throughout the state. The City of Washington also approved a similar agreement through Good Energy last year. Information prepared by Solar on Earth is in the council packet.
We have a representative here. Would you like to come to the podium? Good evening. How are you? Good, thank you. So I have a quick question for you. Where are these panels?
This project is actually going to be in McLean County.
Okay.
Hudson Township.
I saw Hudson Township, but I wasn't sure where it was. Okay.
I do not know what street it's going on.
No, that's
but
okay. Just
It's
curious.
in Hudson Township.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Well, we've got to start somewhere. So I know that you said there's a low risk that, maybe 10 years down the road, there could be a cheaper one. But, you take risks like that with everything, so.
My concern is that 5 years down the road, there might be a lower rate. I just feel like 15 years is a long, long time.
Mr. Vasselli, did you want to say something?
No, no, Madam Mayor, there is nothing I have at
Okay.
this time. If anybody has any questions with regards to either the term or any other substance of the agreement, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Do you have anything else that you would like to say to council?
Absolutely. Josh
All right.
Ray and I spent many months on making sure that the city was getting the best possible deal. There's some factors that were involved with the term and the discount. Some of it has to do with financial audits of the city, some other factors, and we really pushed hard to make sure that Pekin was getting the best possible opportunity. One thing I did want to mention, I'm not trying to be negative, but the city's electric bills this summer are most likely going to be the highest the electric bills have ever been
We've heard that.
for the city of Pekin in the entire history of Pekin. So I believe, and I think no one really knows the answer, the proposal numbers that we did put together in the packet, I do believe to be very conservative. So I think, at a minimum, the city would be looking at saving $53,000 a year directly to the bottom line for the city. And that's on top of whatever aggregate deal that the city does or doesn't do.
What a packet, I might add.
Thank you.
And I have another question.
Absolutely,
Your
Mayor.
son, was he here to sing a song?
No, I tricked him. I told him he was saying Old MacDonald had a little farm tonight, and
He got a little nervous.
Mayor and I made him believe he was doing that, but we told him it was a joke. So I've been dragging him along to board meetings the last couple of weeks.
Very good.
Yeah.
Could you
Well,
tell
does
us?
council have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Peg.
The 15-year term.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that standard, typical for the industry? Where did we come up with that?
Absolutely. So, a few things that we discussed was, credit worthiness, which is something that really came up pretty big
Yeah.
after COVID. When these projects go to get built, the biggest question is who's the one who's taking the power, who's the one who's taking the power. Before COVID, you actually saw a lot more small commercial businesses on these projects where finance considered them to be a lot more of a risk than like maybe a school district or a city that is actually not going to go out of business. They're going to continue to be around. Right now, the market in Ameren has actually shifted between 5 and 10% discount. So even though it is 1% higher than maybe a little bit more than the average, it's at least 1% more than the typical in Ameren. I think this time next year, it's going to be around 5%. And one thing that Councilmember Hoheimer brought up, I've been doing community solar since the program pretty much came out about 12 years ago, which I always joke with farmers, 12 years makes you a veteran at community solar, and farming, that's nothing. But with this, I guess it's a long time. I will say that, and no one knows the future, From what I have seen, every market that opens up, the discount is usually the highest, and then it dwindles down and down and down and down until new markets open up. So for instance, when Massachusetts started their program about 10 years ago, we had a 20% discount. There were some people who thought, hey, maybe a better deal will come out, and we didn't really know the answer, but we didn't think so. And then the discount went down to 15%, and then it went down to 10, and now the average market discount in Massachusetts is 7 to 10%. New York started at a 10% discount. 90% of the market in New York is already at a 5% discount. Vermont has pretty much always been around a 7% discount. Maine started between a 20 and 25, and that market is between 10 and 15 now. In Illinois, we started at a 20% discount 4 years ago, and the market, at least in Ameren right now, is like pretty much between a 5 and 10% discount typically. You can get a 15% discount if you're considered small commercial, which are between like a 250 and 750 kilowatt user, which would be pretty much 25% of the usage that the city uses. So the city would save about $17,000 a year off of a 15% discount off of 25% of their usage, which would not be as good as if they did 11% discount off of 93% of their usage, saving them $53,000. Yeah.
Can
Sorry.
I ask?
Go ahead,
can I
ma'am.
ask you, so Ameren, you go work with Ameren, right?
Well, technically, we work with Illinois Shines. So Illinois Shines is the governing body for the community solar program in Illinois, and Ameren and ComEd have to abide by Illinois Shines rules. So Illinois Shines is kind of like the consumer protections department for anything solar, rooftop, small ground mount, large solar.
So would the city have to would the city be able to opt out, like with the aggregate? We would have to go with Ameren, right?
No, not anymore. And that's a great question. I don't get that too often. So,
Did my homework.
and this is why you don't see a lot of large entities with credits on their bill already in Illinois. And the reason is when the program came out, and this is why half of the companies left Illinois when they came here, because they said this is way too hard. And I love challenges. And even Nate McCarthy said, whoa, I don't know, this is kind of complicated. When they came out with the program in Illinois, you actually had to have ComEd or Ameren as your third-party supplier to get onto the community solar program, and they just changed that rule about a year ago. And believe it or not, I have a customer up by where I live in Carroll County, Illinois, Tushar Patel, who owns 3 grocery stores, and he says, let's just leave it on the third-party supplier and see what happens. Sure enough, he got the full credit. Illinois never even... They made a rule that was never really followed.
Wow.
So they actually completely eliminated that about a year ago because they found out that it was a huge issue, because pretty much every city, every large user of electricity, 85% or more are using a third-party supplier, so that pretty much excluded all of them.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Mayor,
Mr. Nutter,
sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Nutter first, and then Mr. Abel.
So a couple questions. So this Hudson Township?
Yes, sir.
Is that solar array built?
It just got permits, building and electrical permits approved and interconnection from Ameren.
So when's the total build date going to be?
Probably before next summer, realistically. These things take a little bit of time.
Okay. What percentage of that overall package is Pekin going to be on that solar grid?
36%, but I actually think it should be a little bit higher, so I gotta...
So is there a max?
No, there's no max. We're giving the city 93% of their power from solar. So there's a max system size, sir, per parcel, and that's 7.5 megawatt DC in Illinois, which is right around 50 acres. So if you hear of a solar farm that's like 200 acres, 500 acres, that's actually nothing to do with community solar. Community solar projects are actually capped at around a 50-acre parcel.
Okay.
So we're
That's
going to
nice to
end
know.
up actually, for the city, excuse me, having a huge percentage of that solar array.
Absolutely, sir. So.
Okay, last question. What if the incentives and the credits go away based on federal or local and state governments? What happens to the contract?
Nothing. That's just going to impact, future projects, which, I mean, there's a bunch of jobs that are being created from, at least they're not being built by robots yet, all the
So let's say
electricians or
they do
the,
go away in 2 years. What's that do to this contract?
nothing, sir. This,
We just don't get any credit?
no, I'm sorry. Do you mind rephrasing that question?
The credits.
Yes, sir.
You're talking energy credits, and we're going to get, what, I think it's 11%, something like that.
Yes,
We're
sir.
going to pay whoever 80-something.
89%.
89%.
Yep.
And that's based on credits, energy credits.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So if that energy credit goes away based on federal government or state government, what happens?
We don't see that ever happening because this is like a long-term, I understand your question, I like these questions. We have the right to remove Pekin off of the project because at that point, we can't really guarantee any savings at that point.
And
No.
that's in the contract?
Yes, it is,
Okay.
yeah.
Can I clarify too? When we're talking about credits, there's a couple different kinds of credits.
Yep.
So there's, I think the battery's dying on this. Oh, there we go. So we join up the group, and the credit that we get is basically, Ameren says, oh, you gave us all this electricity this year off of the grid that you have ownership in.
Yep.
So because you sold us this electricity, we're going to reduce how much you plan on paying us.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the credits under the federal and state tax programs, those are developer credits, correct?
Absolutely.
And those credits are not a part of the credit that flows through to our utility bill.
Correct, and that's why these agreements are kind of long, because we don't want someone to think that they have ownership in the project, they can get tax credits,
So theoretically, we sign up for the 15-year deal. And let's say a disaster strikes, it wipes out the whole solar array, and for some reason at this point, it's just gone. But we've signed up for the 15-year deal. At that point, we just would not be selling anything to Ameren, and we would get no credit.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
We wouldn't be asked to pay anything to repair the array. We're not responsible for anything. And at that point, we could also go and sell someone else, hey, would you help us generate electricity to sell to Ameren?
I believe in the agreement, we have a certain amount of time to reconstruct the project again. If we fail to do so, then I think we would be in default at that point. That would be under force majeure, acts of God, union strikes, stuff like
Definitely
that.
act of God.
I always get the super what if questions at the municipalities, and I totally understand that part. Just to be clear, we're putting dollar credits directly on the city's electric bills. Those dollar credits are getting deducted off of the total due. About 40 days later, we're billing Pekin exactly 89% of the dollars that directly appeared on Pekin's electric bills. It's very clear, so it's not going to be one of those things like, we can't tell how much we're saving. You got a credit for $50,000 on your bill. Our bill's going to be exactly 11% less the $50,000 credit that was received directly on the Ameren electric bill. It's found money for the city.
Okay. Mr. Alo, I was going to say, who was next?
Nathan and I were talking before the meeting, and I said, what if we'd had a building, a fire station, with solar on it? Could we still qualify? Well, I thought I used the high school as an example. They're ready to go online with theirs. That's where he's going next, is the high school. You mentioned they do schools and
Absolutely.
churches and that. Okay. So you could have both.
In Illinois, pretty much they're wanting you to do as much as possible, more or less, and not every state allows that. So New York, if we're working with the school district and they already have solar on their roof, they cannot do community solar too. In Illinois, you're allowed to do both. You can have, so we just signed on Galesburg School District about 2 months ago. They have a 2.5 megawatt they might have a little bit of a rooftop, but I think they have mostly ground. But they still had a $551,000 bill. So we put credits on the rest of their bill. More or less, these other states don't allow you to have multiple line item credits on one bill. In Illinois, you can have 50 line item credits if you want. Just, I mean, it's not even that difficult. Some of these states, I have no idea why they have these rules, but, yeah.
Anyone else?
I have
Mr.
another
Nutter.
one. This is for Mr. Vaselli. Can you go to page 21 of 22, please? It's the last, it's Exhibit A, or, yeah, Exhibit A.
Yes, it's the definition section, or the Exhibit A, but it has two
Just
definitions on it.
explanation. Purchase percentage equals 8%, but in parentheses, it's 36%. Explain that.
That is a typographical error. And so it would be 36%. That is the amount that
Yes.
was referenced during the narrative. So
So
on
it's
page,
36, so the parentheses number is correct.
the parenthetical number is correct. The 8% is a typo, and it will get fixed, obviously. It'll get fixed in the conversion of the document.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Nutter, the reason why that's important is we filed this paperwork. It's called Schedule Z. It's net metering paperwork with Ameren, because on that solar farm, we have a meter, and we're taking all the account and meter numbers from Pekin's electric bills. We're filing that to Ameren, and we're telling them how much percentage from the total of 36% would be distributed amongst each meter, depending on how much it's using, with the water department using the most.
Water.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to make sure that you get the city of Pekin meter numbers.
I know.
Because there's been an issue in the past that Ameren picked up too many accounts in another town.
I've been hearing this recently, and I don't know
And
how
it's been
that's happening.
adjusted.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
just word of caution, you know, I
Uh-huh.
get it, it's a difficult thing to do, and they just got to pick up the right meters,
Nope,
bottom line.
nope.
Seeing none other, council, take your vote, please. Motion passes 6. Oh, they didn't clear it? I'm sorry.
Oh, I guess, yeah, that's the right one.
It says it is. Okay, motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstain. It was just the same kind of vote.
Yeah, I thought it was the previous one.
Oh, you have to, that was last year. Oh, okay, last vote. So you were
Can
right.
you repeat that louder? I was right.
You were right, Mr. Dossi. All right, council, take your vote, please. Did you vote again? Okay. Is that correct? No. Well. Roll call,
Madam
please.
Mayor, I'd love to do a roll call vote right now. Councilmember Hilst?
No.
Councilmember Abel?
Aye.
Councilmember Nutter?
No.
Councilmember Hoheimer?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher? No. Councilmember Phillips?
Aye.
And Mayor Burris.
Aye. Motion passes 4-3.
Thank you, council.
Is that correct? Oh, you're welcome.
Yes.
Correct,
I
Mr.
appreciate your
Vasselli?
time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion passes 4-3.
Thank
Sorry
you
about
so
my
much.
microphone.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you, City of Pekin.
Thank you. Chair would now entertain a motion for 7.8, please.
Madam Mayor, I move that resolution number 312-25/26, approving a purchase agreement for a new Pierce Enforcer 75-foot aerial ladder truck with McQueen Equipment LLC be approved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abel and second by Ms. Hoheimer. Mr. Dossi.
Mayor, I'm going to let Chief Reese present this since he wrote a lot on here.
Mr. Reese.
Well, that backfired. That'll be funny. I wouldn't bore you with reading this to you. What this is the fire truck that we've talked about as a bigger part of our vehicle replacement plan. This is coming forward to get under contract to get this ordered, as they are 44 to 48 months out. If you remember during the budget presentations and budget time, there is no financial impact this year in the budget. Reason for that is we can pay upon delivery. The total price that is in here for the $1,785,000 is for the at delivery price. There is a discount to pay upon signing. It would be about 1.6 million if we paid today. Now, if you remember too, when we did the engine last, there is a proration. So if at any point during this time while we're waiting, we do fall into a pile of money or are able to bond out in a certain way, we could pay it off early and have a reduction then. It's just kind of scaled back across the time. This will be replacing our 2013 Alexis ladder truck. That truck, when this one would be delivered, will be 17 years old. And if you remember, there are some issues with that vehicle. We are keeping it alive and working towards replacing the things that need replaced as we go. Part of the build out for this vehicle, we have a committee of members of the department that will serve on this vehicle. In addition, we have the EVT, the emergency vehicle technician, which is Ryan Mason, one of our city garage mechanics, also sits on our committee to be able to say what are the long-term effects of ordering it with this or without this. That way, he'll be the one working on it once it's out of warranty, and his opinion is well received amongst our group, and he is very, very good. Shout out to him. If you look down in the financial impact portion that is on the agenda item, that item, again, there is no money in the budget for it this year. This is just to go under the contract. You'll notice that there were some examples put in here of such as $1 million from the general fund and $800,000 from CDBG. This is just put in there kind of as examples to you guys of places we can find sourcing over the next several years. That's not to lock us in that we will use CDBG money or we won't. It is a program available or program use, allowable use. However, there's nothing set in stone from our end of an ask so far as to where the funding will come from. This is a consortium bid, meaning it comes from Sourcewell. There is a sticker price for an engine, there's a sticker price for a ladder, then the only variance is what you use. Our committee spent hours, and when I say hours, I mean hours, going over each piece and part and light and compartment. You won't believe how long a bunch of firefighters can sit and talk about a 2x5 area of a compartment. It's a long time. And the reason for that, though, is we understand these are high dollar items, and we're expecting a long usage out of them. The problem we're in right now is we ordered 3 big pieces of apparatus in 2007, 2008, and we're in a bottleneck. Our goal through that vehicle replacement plan is to start the path now to replacing something every 5 years. That way there is actual value to it when the time comes to sell it, because what I fear, whichever way, ladder 3 we will sell, and I don't know how much we'll sell it for. I don't know what it'll be worth in 4 years. Strategic planning is difficult enough as it is, and then you throw that on there. What vehicle, will we have any vehicles still running in 4 years? Hopefully all of them, but that's kind of the biggest difficult thing, and that's why tonight the ask is get us under contract so we can get in line, please.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Council? Mr. Fletcher?
So Chief, if we order this today, this goes through, which Assume it will. We are locked in at that price, is that correct?
The 1785?
So,
Yes, sir.
to me, all city business should be conducted this way, because for the simple fact that no one knows how much it's gonna go up next year or the year after, but it's going up.
For sure.
And if we wait in 2 years even, that 1.7 is probably gonna be 2.5.
Easy.
Probably. So I appreciate at least your department reaching out, explaining to me how you want this stuff budgeted and how you want to spread things out. So I wanted to thank you for that, and
Thank you.
I think the public, it's much easier to explain to the public why we have to spend the money if we can budget 4 to 5 years out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other council? Mr. Hilst?
So what's the warranty on this?
Let me pass it over to my warranty assistant.
I'm not going to call you about your car warranty. I sort of figured this question might come up, and it's there are 23 or 31 warranty line items. I'm not going to read all of them. It's a 1 year bumper to bumper, 5 years on the motor, 50 years on the chassis, that's the frame rails, 10 years on the cab and the box, stainless steel plumbing, and the structure of the aerial ladder itself is a 20-year warranty. And I can talk about a lot more if you want to. Paint is 4 years on the aerial, paint is 10 years on the body, and I'll stop.
Yeah, you don't have to go on. I mean, you hit the main ones I was looking for. So is this the same company that's gonna be building this as the 2013 that got built?
It is not.
That's a different one?
It is a different company.
And that's a frame issue, right? Part of it.
In part, on that vehicle, yes.
And
It's not a
this new
rust
one
issue,
is
but
gonna have a
it's
50-year warranty on that frame?
correct. And if you remember back several years ago now, there was a big lawsuit across the country with this company had frame rail issues. The steel they bought, they changed the steel but didn't change the coating, and it came back to haunt them. I couldn't be more pleased with how they made it right with us. We did not go in the class action lawsuit. We went our own way, and it actually paid off really well for us. We did pretty well on that, which is what set us up to be able to do those refurbs on those today, because we know the frames are brand new underneath those. And that's the Band-Aid that's getting us through to start the process of this every year replacement. So they did treat us right. They made it right as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, and you talked about, just putting some examples out there where the money might come from to pay for this. If you guys use any source of money out of that CDBG, this truck will have to be stationed down at the Derby Street, right?
Yes, low LMI.
Okay, and the last thing I wanted to hit on, so if you go to where your vehicle replacement plan is,
Yes, sir.
okay, and it shows,
On the spreadsheet? Is that
Yes.
where we're looking? Okay.
yeah. So for fiscal year '26, it shows that we're gonna pay the remaining balance off of engine 2 there, that 07?
Correct.
Okay,
For the refurb?
correct.
Yes, sir.
So then you go down to fiscal year '29, and it says that refurbished engine 2, that 2007 Pierce, is gonna be moved into the reserve unit. We've always been told when we approve for these refurbishes, even though they're not brand-new vehicles, that's supposed to give them basically a brand-new second life for 15 or 20 years, whatever it is. Why would we be moving something 3 years out from a refurbished into the reserve unit?
Well, in part, it's to get us away from this bottleneck that we're in now with ordering new vehicles and being
But wouldn't that
stuck.
truck still be able to be used on the front line 3 years later?
I would say theoretically, yeah, it could be. I think putting it in as a very, very good reserve unit and setting up the unborn us that'll be sitting in all these seats, there's a value to that. This spreadsheet is just my work. It's actually saved into my computer as Dream Journal. But, no, I think,
So that's not necessarily set in stone, that you're gonna move that into the reserves?
no, I think it gives us that option. This is optimal, in my mind, where we would be as a city.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay, appreciate the info, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, council, take your vote, please. Motion passes 7-0. Chief, thank you very much for all the time and the work you put into this. We appreciate it. We have now come down to new business, or excuse me, other business to come before the council. Mr. Dossi, do you and your staff have anything you'd like to fill us in on?
Yes, Mayor. I think some of the public have noticed on our city website, you'll see a widget on there that says Text My Gov. We're anticipating going live in the next week or so. I'm working through some press releases and information with that will go out to the public. There'll be a QR code. This is going to offer us some communication options with the public where they can actually text in if they create the account or whatever. They have the ability to follow a case of something they've reported, whether it's a pothole that needs filled or, a sewer issue or some other road issue. Also, it's replacing Nixle. I know with our last weather, that was a question, Councilman Nutter, but Nixle has expired, and we are going to be transitioning over to Text My Gov, and I forget what the actual weather portion of it is, but it's all part of this for community alerts. We'll be able to put out different information and open it up, and it also is replacing our fleet services tracking, and from all responses I get from the team that has developed this, they really like all the options it has out there. I believe some dates have been sent out to the council on some special meetings regarding strategic planning. That is in the process, and I have been working with them, and they're reaching out to a focus group that will be a variety of different community leaders, and they're also going to do a public session. Once I get all that information done this week, we should be putting out the information for the public meeting. I know that's coming up in July and in August, as well as a council retreat. And just this weekend, just remind everybody that the Balloon Festival is taking place, and that will be out at the Advani's Dome. And that's all I have. I don't believe any staff has anything further.
Very good. Mr. Hilst.
Just a quick question that's been brought up a few times in the public. So can anybody give a reason why that entrance in the Market Square off of Parkway was opened back up?
Yes, the engineers provided the opinion letter that everything is where it needs to be and is to specifications. And we put up some measures and have been monitoring it, but there's no reason, based on what the engineer has stated, that necessarily needs to be closed. So we opened it up in efforts to work with the property owners and the stores there, so they have that entrance there.
Was that discussed at all in front of the Traffic and Safety Committee, or just the engineers?
Through the engineering firm that installed it.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Nutter.
Well, I want to compliment Eric. You put so much financial data in there, my head was spinning. But if anybody's got a question about finances, you put it in this report. So it's just going to take a little bit to go through because it's all new, but kudos for putting, that's about as transparent as you can get. So,
thank you, sir.
And I want to chime in for what Mr. Dossi says, not only the Balloon Fest, but it's got music, food, a band, music is a band, duh, and food out there. It's Friday and Saturday. There's a morning session, evening session. I think it's a good addition to all the stuff that we do in this city, so I'm looking forward to attending.
So,
That's all I have.
Mr. Nutter, are
Yeah.
you going to be there for the 5 or 5:30 flight in the morning? It's
No, I'm
sunrise.
not a sponsor, but if they
I just
want to
had to
put me
ask
on
you.
that balloon and cut the tether, I'll say, see, I'll be back whenever it lands somewhere.
Ms. Phillips?
Just want to thank everybody for being here tonight and spending the evening with us. I know this is the best thing you could imagine. And if you want to talk about any issues, I'll be glad to speak after the council meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Fletcher?
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Abel?
Two quick things. I was looking through the, I call it the Amazon shopping list, and are we saving that much money buying common things like toilet paper, paper towels, Dawn soap, dish soap from Amazon? I just don't like putting money in Jeff Bedsoe's pocket when we can put it in the stores, Menards, I don't care who, locally owned stores here in Pekin. Is
I
there a
believe, and
cost
I
thing
think
involved?
Dave Hess, if you want to come in and talk a little bit further with Dave Hess, I believe through Amazon, there's a lot of local stores that do participate through that. And I think there's a sign up, or however we enrolled in it, that is an option, that it's local through there. Can I tell you it's specifically from Menards or our local Walmart? No, but I know that is part of it, because I know that when that came up in a question a year or so ago, that we looked into that, and that is part of it, is there's local vendors that participate in that.
This was almost $4,000. I thought,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to get some of that money into
Yeah.
Pekin.
Yeah.
And I do believe some of that does come into Pekin. I'd have to verify through that.
And then one more
Good question.
thing. Maybe because I drive through it a lot, but the intersection itself, the little intersection of 14th and Park Avenue, is
14th and Park, okay.
deteriorating. Now, to me, the 4 roads leading into it are not bad shape, but the actual intersection is shot. As far as little holes, big holes, and I didn't know if it was on our schedule maybe next year to at least do the intersection a little bit. And I know they all could use it, I got the roads, but to me, the roads coming in, Park Avenue and 14th,
Yeah.
aren't bad. But that intersection is bad.
All right.
Just
Mr.
an
Hilst?
idea.
Mr. Hilst wanted to comment.
I've asked that question a couple different times in the past, and I was told when the previous city engineer was still here that they weren't going to do anything to that until they did the Court Street phase of that project, because that was all going to tie in with the Court Street. So they
Okay.
didn't want to do anything with it until then. That's the answer I got on that.
Well, how about if we have Simon?
I believe that is correct, and we'll verify that with
Okay.
the.
At least it's on the radar, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Ms. Hoheimer?
I'd like to see on the next agenda an amendment to the solar garden ordinance, adding the verbiage that all residential solar gardens must be approved by the council, like the commercial.
That is an, Madam
Yes,
Chairman,
please.
that is an excellent point, Madam Council Member, but because it is a zoning-related issue, we would have to put it through either to get, well, it's got to go through planning and zoning before it could get final approval here. That's just the nature of all zoning changes, as you know from experience on there. So if you want to make a recommendation that it goes through, or are you asking?
Through zoning again?
Yeah.
Okay.
To go on that specific limited issue.
Yes.
Okay,
And
excellent.
that was my issue with it, too. I thought, we listened to everything else, why not that one? So. Okay. Anything else, Ms. Hoheimer?
No, thank
Okay.
you.
I want to say, I was on vacation, so I missed the employee luncheon. I heard it was wonderful, and I want to thank Mr. Dossi and Ms. Hoheimer. They took some time out to be there. But I want the employees to know how much I appreciate each and every one of you. So I hope you had a great luncheon. Thank you. One other thing, so the month of July, starting July 2nd, I have to call in every week. I was chosen for federal jury duty. I know. I know. So first of all, I'm thinking, why on earth would you pick me? But so because for some of you that don't know, I was married to a police officer, and he passed away. I'm the mayor of the city of Pekin. My daughter works for Children's Advocacy Center. I just didn't think that, why would they want me on a jury? But anyway, with that being said, on our retreats, they start July 18th, correct?
I believe that's the
Yeah.
date.
So I hope I don't have to miss any, but I just wanted to give everybody a warning that it's legit, and I have to do my civic duty.
Mayor, can I add one more thing?
Please do.
To the Amazon question.
That was Abel?
Eric had some information, but I also, Paige, let me know. We did just recently sign up with Staples Advantage, I believe it's
Nice.
called.
Yeah.
Which is going to have some significant impact. And was there more, Eric, that you wanted to share?
We had some discussion with a group called Omnia Partners, who they're part of a consortium that different agencies across the country, they end up doing an RFP, and then you can kind of piggyback on it. So it's nothing that we necessarily have to go and we're not going to cite them so much, but we can go to these vendors and say, yes, there's this contract, and I know it, and I want to get that pricing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I'm gonna bring up the county again. But we also did Staples Advantage, but there was also in the auditor's department, we had to go down with POs and say, this is what I want, need for the office, and they would search out which was the cheapest, whether it be Ameren, Staples, Menards. So they did the legwork for us and got it at the cheapest price that was available. So I know we don't have an auditor's office, but that's how it was for the county, and it worked, and it was very helpful. It's centralized purchasing, and they got the cheapest price for us. So, FYI.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have something else. I wrote down and I skipped the page.
Okay.
The Teamster contract, where, for the solid waste and/or general, where does it stand? And that's going to make a
We're almost
decision.
done. You'll be at the next meeting, there'll be an executive session, and hopefully the rest of them will be brought forward to you.
I was going to say.
We
when-
met today all day, and we made really good progress. The Teamsters on the general unit is looking into some things, so I'll have an update for you, and we'll do an exec session at the next meeting, and hopefully have some contracts ready to be approved.
Okay, if that's coming, you think for sure the next
July
council?
14th.
July 14th? Okay.
So, one other
Unless they
thing,
go
I
rogue.
want, oh, I'm sorry. One other thing, I want to remind the council that we have a special meeting on the 25th. And that is it 9 o'clock? 4 o'clock. Oh, excuse me, 4. Yeah, that one's 4 o'clock on the 25th. So we will not have executive session this evening. As Mr. Dossi just explained to Mr. Nutter, that it's not quite done yet for union negotiation. So with that, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abel and second by Ms. Hoheimer. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's it. Thank you very much, everyone.